The Lord gives us the secret of success in every area of our life. It's a secret so simple that most people miss it, never catching what God intends for them to have. It's the secret of the second mile. And I want to bring to you today a message on second mile saints. Jesus said, "And whosoever shall compel you to go a mile, go with him too." Verse 41, Matthew 5. If somebody compels you, forces you to go a mile, go with him too. Why would Jesus have said that? First of all, the Jewish family in the day of our Lord was living under occupation by the Roman government, so that their soldiers were on duty there, and whatever the Roman government said, whatever their laws were, the Jews had to obey not the Jewish law, but Roman law. And one of those laws was that if any soldier was passing through and he was bearing his pack, he could say to any Jewish man or boy, "Here, carry my load for me." And whatever that man or boy was doing, the law said he had to leave it, take up that soldier's pack, put it on his back, and walk with him for 1 mile. Josephus, that early Jewish historian, made note that nearly every Jewish man and boy had mile markers set out from his house, so that if they were outside working and one of those men came by with his burden and said, "Hey, you, come here and carry my load," that boy would have to take that pack, walk with that soldier for 1 mile. But the same law that said he had to bear it for a mile then said he could put it down in the dirt and say, "Tote your own load." That's where most of us are. But Jesus said, if you want to make a difference, if you want to impact lives, if you want to let them see that God is living in you and is changing your life, when they tell you to go a mile, when you get to the end of the mile, just look up and smile and say, "If it's all right with you, I'd like to carry this for another mile." And during that mile, you can really get their attention. You can make an impact and you can help change their life. We're living in a high-strung, nervous, tense kind of world where what's going on in people's minds we don't know, but many times it's vented on us. I heard about a woman who had retired, fine Christian lady, one of those ladies that had grown up in a really secluded kind of world, never knew really what was going on, but decided to travel. And so she went to visit some family in Texas, and they said, "Let's go out to the ball game." And so they took her to a football game. And when they got out there, she saw all these people doing this number. And she said, "What is that?" And they said, "That's hook 'em horns." She said, "That's pretty good. Hook 'em horns. Go get them." She went on to Hawaii and got over there and she saw people, I can't make my fingers do that, doing that number. And said, "What is that?" Said, "That's hang 10. That means just get with it. You're cool." She said, "I like that." She came back home and was driving down the street. And not watching maybe what she ought to have done. The light changed and she didn't pull off just when she should have. And the fellow behind her blew his horn at her. And she thought he was just being friendly, so she blew hers. And then when she started to pull off, he pulled up beside her and gave her a sign. And she thought it was like one of those over from Hawaii or out in Texas, so she gave him one back. And he cut in front of her and tried to wreck her car. And it was then that she decided that she needed to make a left turn, so she put her whole arm out the window and gave another sign. We're living in a world that is tense. And what's going on in people's minds might surprise you, and it might scare you if you knew what they were going through. And if we knew what they were going through, it might make a difference in the way we respond or react to them. Sam Jones, that great Methodist evangelist of another day, the Billy Graham of his day, was traveling from city to city, preaching in one revival meeting after another. He had been doing this for weeks. He was tired and left one city, got on a train to go to the next place where he was to start a revival the next morning. So weary that all he wanted to do was rest. He didn't want to see anybody, just sleep. So he got in his berth and pulled the curtain around him to get some rest. And as he laid there trying to go to sleep, across the way, a little child started crying. And he said, I laid there trying to stop my ears, and that didn't work. I put the pillow over my head, and that didn't work. And he said, I could hear a man's voice saying, shh, don't cry now. It's going to be all right. It'll be okay. Shh, don't cry. Please don't. Shh, shh, don't cry. Here, take this bottle. Shh, don't cry. And he said after some time, in exasperation, he stuck his head through the curtain and hollered and said, hey, mister, why don't you give that baby to its mother so I can get some rest? And a sobbing voice came back and said, mister, I'd like to take this baby to its mother, but its mother is in a coffin in the car in front of us. And he said, I and half a dozen others got down out of our berths and went to that man and said, mister, let us take care of the baby so you can get some rest. If we knew what people were going through, we might not be so quick to judge. We might not be so quick to respond. We might not be so quick on the trigger to hurt them if we knew what they were going through. I saw a cartoon some years ago, and it had 4 little boxes that went with this cartoon, and the title was, Why the Boy Pulled the Cat's Tail. In the first box, it showed a man standing before his boss man, and the boss man was just reading the riot act to him, giving him a hard time because of something that he hadn't done properly. The second box shows that man coming home, and here is the woman in the kitchen, and that man is giving it to his wife. I mean, he's just unloading on her the same thing that he had got from the boss man. He couldn't give it back to the boss, so he just takes it out on her. The next caption shows the little boy, and the mother is in the den, and she's unloading on the boy what the husband had just unloaded on her, what the boss had just unloaded on him. And the fourth box showed the boy in his bedroom, and he's got the cat in his arms, and the claws are stuck out, and he's pulling the cat's tail. There's nowhere else for him to go. Some of the folks that you run into, that's the kind of thing that they're unloading in your world. It's just a compilation of stuff that's been going on for hours or perhaps for days, and they're just letting go on you. Jesus said, if one compels you to go a mile, go with him too. I believe that this is the key to success. I believe it's the key to success in every area of marriage, in every area of life. For instance, I've never known a student, boys and girls, that went to their teacher and said, I can't wait for us to have our first test so I can flunk out of this class. No, you want to pass. You want to be a success. I've never seen a businessman that said, I want to start this business so I can bankrupt it just as quick as I can. You want to be a success. Everybody wants to succeed in every area of life. That's true in marriage, is it not? I've never had a person to come to me and said, preacher, I want to have some premarital counseling so you can tell me how I can get divorced. No, they want to get married. They want to live their life together. They want to stay together for all their days. They're not looking to divorce one another. It's the key to success. Now, folks, if you haven't learned it, everybody that's married, raise your hand. All right. All that want to be, raise your hand. Okay, that's several. Bless the Lord. I understand that. Marriage is something you have to work at. It's not an automatic. Coming to the preacher and having him to say, I pronounce you husband and wife, does not guarantee you a success in life. As a matter of fact, it don't do anything except just say you are legally married according to the law and with the blessing of the church. But I want to tell you what, if you don't go home and work at your marriage 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you never will find the success that God intends for you to have. Now, life changes, and she will not always look as good as she does right now. As a matter of fact, some of you guys have never seen her the way she really looks. But the day after you get married, the cover comes off. And you'll see her. Her hair looks like an explosion in a spaghetti factory. I mean, you just... big old things stuck in it, looked like antenna from Mars coming home. Try to kiss her and there's so much grease you slide right on by. And he don't always smell of aftershave lotion. Oh, dear God. You didn't know that his name was Pigpen before you married him. You can trace him through the house by pieces of clothing that he drops as he walks, or the mud that is always on his feet. But I want to just say to you folks, if things are not good, it may be because you're not working at them. Are you listening? How many of you men would agree that if your wife really loved you with the deep of her heart and loved you enough to be a second miler in your marriage, that tomorrow morning before the sun came up, her feet would hit the floor? She soon would be rattling pots and pans in the kitchen, cooking country ham, red-eye gravy, grits and eggs, and homemade biscuits, and then would come to your bedside where the king of the castle lives and bow at your feet and say, "Oh, my prince, would you please come? Breakfast is served." Would you agree with that? Yeah, I thought so. But it's not that way, is it? He's suffering from baldness and bad breath and bunions and bulging belly now. Furniture disease. His chest is dropped into his drawers. But as bad as he looks, ladies, I want you to know there are 10,000 women out there that would do anything in their world to be able to get your man from you. As a matter of fact, they laid awake last night trying to figure out a way that they could steal him away from you. You've got to work at keeping your husband. And the same thing is true, ladies. Would you agree? Wouldn't it be nice if he just showed up tonight, just out of the blue, for no reason in the world at all, and brought you a box of candy? Or a bundle of roses? Amen. There'll be roses at that house this week. Heard about a couple that were not getting along, and the pastor had given counsel, and he said to the man, the only thing wrong with your relation, your wife, is that she just doesn't feel like you appreciate her. Said, you just need to do something different than you've been doing. Show her you appreciate her. Get her some candy or roses or something. So the guy said, that's good, I'll do that. So he carried some clothes with him to the plant, and after his shift was over, he showered there in the plant and shaved, put on aftershave lotion, smelling good, put on these fresh clothes, stopped and bought her a box of candy, stopped at the florist and got her a bouquet of roses. Instead of going to the back door like he always did, he went around to the front and rang the bell. When she came to the door, there he stood, all dressed up, smelling good, looking nice, gave her candy, gave her roses, took her in his arms, and gave her a passionate kiss, and she started crying. He said, "What in the world are you crying for? All I was wanting to do is just to show you that I love you and appreciate you." She said, "This has been the worst day I've ever seen." She said, "Two of the children have chicken pox, the others have colds, one fell and broke his tooth. I can't get an appointment with the dentist for a month. The washing machine broke and I've got suds all over the house. And now Mama called and said she's coming to spend a week with us. And on top of that, you come home drunk. It just can't get any worse than this." She may have lost her hourglass figure. It may look like a pear now. But I'm going to tell you now, men, if you don't think that there are men out there that'll try to wreck your home, steal her away from you, do everything they can to get her, you've got another thing coming. And if you are half wise at all, you'll start to notice her, appreciate her, write her notes, send her a card, kiss her, let her know that she's the love of your life and that she's more lovely to you today than she was the day you married her. And all the ladies said, "Amen." Thank you. This is the key. Second mile. I don't have to do that. No, you don't. But if you want to have the joy in your life that can be, you'll do those kinds of things in your day-to-day world. But it is also the key of a successful Christian life. You know, most people are not successful in their Christian experience. It's a drudgery for them. They get up on Sunday morning and say, "Oh, dear God, it's Sunday again. I got to go down there to that preacher. Got to go down there and listen to that man. He just preaching never seems to get through. I hate to go down to church," but you come on anyhow, don't you? It's sad that that's the way it is with most people. "What do you mean, preacher? I don't have time to pray. I don't have time to read my Bible." And you make all the excuses not to be what God would have us be. An evangelist friend of mine was preaching down in Dadeville, Alabama. And at the invitation, a woman came forward, said to the evangelist, "I want you to pray for my husband that he'll be saved." He said, "Have you ever stayed up all night weeping and praying over your husband?" She said, "No." He said, "Well, I don't believe God would have me to give my time to pray for your husband if you're not concerned enough about him to pray." Made her mad. She left the church saying to some of the people, "That man hurt my feelings worse than I've ever been hurt. I'll never come to this church again." Her husband was leaving on the midnight run. He was a conductor on the railroad when suddenly a premonition came over him that something was wrong at home. He asked the traffic controller to get somebody to take his job. He drove back to the house. Got there, walked in the dark, and he heard the sounds of his wife crying, switched on the light, and there she sat, face buried in her hands, just boo-hooing. He said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Nothing." He said, "I know there is. There's something wrong. You wouldn't be sitting here crying. Are the children all right?" "They're fine." "Is your mom and daddy okay?" "They're fine." "Well, why are you crying?" And she told him about that preacher had hurt her feelings. He said, "You tell me where he is, I'll go whip him right now." She said, "Oh, don't do that, for I've become convinced that he was right, and I'm weeping and praying that you'll come to know Jesus as your Savior." The next Sunday morning, when the message was given and the invitation, that woman stepped into the aisle to come back to that same preacher, and by her side was her husband. And Mr. Nash confessed Jesus Christ is his Savior. When she went the second mile, when she learned what it was to give herself away to pray, then God began to move in her life. It is also the secret of a successful church. Second milers. Now I want you to just understand, folks, every church has too many 1 mile Christians. They do all that you can get them to do, but nothing more than that. They come, well, we got a lot of holly and lily Christians. They just come at Christmas and Easter. But then there are those that come and they'll say, "Well, I'm going to give him 1 hour," and that's it, just one. but no real commitment. They're erratic in their attendance. Can't count on them. You can't build a church on folks like that. And God can't bless a person like that like He wants to. Not only are they erratic in their attendance, they're irregular in their giving. Now folks, I'm just about ready to tell Brother Barry and our musicians that we need to change the music that we play for the offertory. We play those nice, soft, sweet little songs. Have you ever, you ought to just come sit where I do and look at people when the offering's being taken. We ought to start playing something like He died of a broken heart. It's the saddest look you've ever seen. Jesus says that He loves a cheerful giver. And yet, boy, we make it like the hardest thing in the world. If not that, maybe haunting memories, because folks get that far away look in their eye until the offering plate goes by. Or maybe another one would be beautiful dreamer. They just sort of start to look up the sky and they begin to count the bubbles in the ceiling. Or maybe a better one is I feel like traveling home. Yeah, I think that'd be a good one. I heard about a revival that was going on, and there was a man in the community that was reputed to be the skinflint of the church, and he never gave anything, just always gave $1. One little old boy wanted to see if that was true, and so he sat by him every night. And sure enough, every time the offering plate came by, that man didn't give anything till the last night. He saw him reach in his pocket and pull out one of those old sow's ear purses and pop it open, roll around down in there till he got $1 and pulled it out. Rolled it up till George thought the Revolutionary War was starting all over again. And as the plate came by, he dropped it in. And he heard him say under his breath, "When we must asunder part, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again." That's the way the average person thinks about their giving. But doesn't God love a cheerful giver? Doesn't God bless when people get excited about giving? You remember what happened here a few weeks ago when we were having our chest of Joash offering, and on Sunday morning, man, I'd given instruction of what to do, and somebody either got mixed up or just couldn't wait, and they came forward and put their offering in the chest, and before they could get to their seat, 2 or 3 more came, and then everybody started coming. Folks in the choir started crying. Little lady started down the aisle, came to me and said, "Preacher, I can't wait. I want to get it right and I want to join the church today." 13 people came into church today. I didn't get to preach. It was just people excited because God was blessing those who were cheerful givers. What a difference it would make if people did what God would have them do. We'd have an immediate revival. Every church would have an immediate revival if every person became a second-mile Christian. Our attendance would double from one Sunday to the next if everybody became second-milers. And our offerings, what would happen if suddenly people began to give, everybody, like second-mile givers. Happened down in Florida. Some folks came to the pastor and said, "Pastor, we've got a problem." Said, "Uncle so-and-so has died and he's left Daddy $1 million. And we're afraid to tell Daddy about it because, he's got a bad heart. And if we tell him, we're afraid he's going to have a heart attack and he'll die. And we don't know what to do." The pastor said, "I can handle that. I've been to college. I've studied some psychology. I know how to handle that." And so he went down to visit him. Sat down on the porch where the old man was, chewing his tobacco, spitting over the banister. And they talked about fishing and they talked about the weather. And after a while he said, "Now, what would you do if somebody were to just die and leave you $1 million?" He cut his tobacco a time or two and spit over the... "So I tell you what, preacher," said, "if somebody were to die and leave me $1 million, I'd just give you half of it." And the preacher had a heart attack and died. It would amaze us what would happen if everybody got in on the giving. Now, why should we do this? First of all, because the Bible says to. Look in the book of Romans chapter 12. You know that scripture. Jesus says through the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 12 verse 1, "I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service." And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and perfect and acceptable will of God. Give yourself as a sacrifice. Jesus showed us the example when He gave Himself as a sacrifice. Even when His disciples went away and there were so few left that He said to the 12, will you also go away? And they said, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the word of life. Jesus gave Himself a sacrifice. Even when His own family said, he's lost his mind, He could have quit, but He didn't. In Gethsemane, when under the load of the world that He's about to die for, He sweats blood. He could have quit, but He did not quit. And even when they nailed Him to the cross, oh dear God, as I consider that, I said, Lord, if that had been me when they said, if you be God, come down, I wouldn't have stayed up there. I'd have showed that crowd. I'd have called the angels. I'd have zapped the world. I'd have nuked that crowd. I'd have been through with the whole wad of them that they didn't love me, but He just stayed there. He showed us the way to go the second mile. Some of you who have been irregular, some of you who have been erratic, some of you who've got just enough that you're miserable rather than happy. You need to learn today and ask God to do a work in your heart that you'll go from where you are to where God would have you to be. The Bible says to. Jesus gave us the example in setting that for us. And the second mile wins others. Now folks, I want you to understand, lukewarm, indifferent, half-hearted, 1 mile Christians never wins anybody to Jesus. It's those whose hearts are burning for Christ, who are ready to get up, who are ready to go, who are ready to sacrifice, who are ready to go out, knock on doors, do what they can, anything that is needed, but get people to God. They're the ones that's going to make a difference for God. Church had caught on fire. The firemen were there trying to put it out. The crowd had gathered. The pastor with the crowd standing across the street watching as the flames licked up through the ceiling of the church. When he noticed the man standing beside of him was a neighbor from down the street, but did not attend church, and he said, I've never seen you at church before. He said, this is the first time your church has been on fire before. I wonder if God lit the fire in our hearts. If we really begin to burn for God, would it make a difference to our community? I'm going to tell you, folks, we already can't hardly take care of the crowds, but they'd beat our doors down to get in if all of us began to glow for God. It was out in Texas. They'd built a church in one of those boomtown oil cities. And as they built it, they built a church there to glorify God. And they were going to have a dedication when the building was paid for. And they had tried for years to get the building debt done, and they had not been able to. But now this year, on homecoming day, they felt like they could pay it off. And they'd raised the money. They'd done everything they could to contact all the members. And on the Sunday night before homecoming, the pastor got up and he said, folks, we've done everything that we know to do. We've raised all the money that we can. Nobody will know where else to go, and so we won't be able to dedicate the church next Sunday. We're going to have to put it off for another year. The song service continued. They noticed a little white-headed man who'd been seated on the front get up and walk across and sit down by a lady on the other side. Nobody thought anything about it. He is the janitor of the church, a retired man. She was his wife. But then in a minute he came to the pastor and spoke to him, and the preacher stopped the song. Said, Brother so-and-so has something that he wants to say. And he said, all of you know how much we have worked for and longed for being able to dedicate our church, to pay the debt off and have dedication, and invite all of our friends to come in and rejoice with us. And the pastor says that we're $5,000 short. The other day, while I was out in the yard, all of you know where me and Mama live. We're retired, just a little place, but it's ours, and we're going to spend our rest of our days there. But a man came by and said the town was growing, and And they had a market for houses and wanted to know if we wanted to sell our house. And told him no. Why, this is just our place, and Mom and me are going to live here together till we die. But he said, I love the Lord and I love this church more than I do my house. Now I've talked it over with Mama and she agrees. So tomorrow morning I'm going to call that man and tell him that we'll sell him our house and we're going to give the $5,000 to pay off the church. One of those big oil men jumped to his feet and said, no, we won't take your money. Why, I've got more money than I'll ever be able to spend, and I'm going to give that $5,000. Another man jumped to his feet and said, no, he ain't going to give that $5,000. I'm going to give that $5,000. In just a matter of minutes, they'd raised $100,000 out of that congregation. Because one man and woman learned the secret of the second mile and showed what it's like for others. The second mile is the only way to be happy. I know that many are unhappy because they have just enough religion to make them miserable and not enough to really make them happy in Jesus. That's true with husbands and wives. That's true with church members. That's true with people who go to their job and think that it's the awfulest past they've ever had, and they just put in their time and can't wait till the clock to send them home. But when people learn to go the second mile, it changes their world. First Baptist Church, Dallas, Texas. Man walked into the pastor's study, said to the secretary, I would like to speak to the pastor. When he was allowed to come in, he walked up and he put his hands on the pastor's desk and said, I want you to take my name off of this church roll. Why? Because you lied to me. He said, you told me that if I'd get saved and join the church, I'd be the happiest that I could ever be. And he said, you lied. Ever since I've been saved, I've been trying to do the things that the church wanted me to do, and I've tried to quit all the bad things that I've been doing. And I want you to know I'm the most miserable man there is in Dallas, and I want you to take my name off this church roll. He said, well, sir, I can't do that. But if you'll do one thing for me, and you still want your name off of the roll, I'll bring it to the deacons, and if they agree, we'll recommend to the church and we'll strike your name from the roll. He said, whatever it is, just get it done. I want my name off of the roll. He stepped out, came back with a paper and handed it to the man and said, this is a woman whose name has come to our attention and she needs some food. If you'll just take her some food and come back, if you still want your name off, we'll take it off. He said, don't leave the office, I'll be back. Drove his Cadillac out to the store, filled the trunk up with food, and started looking for that address. He drove through the affluent neighborhood in which he lived, on out into the suburbs, on out into the country, finally down by the city dump. He found the address. As he got a bag under each arm and started up those old rickety steps, afraid they would break, he came up to the house. Screen door torn open. He took his foot, knocked on the wall. The door opened. There were big old brown eyes of a little Mexican girl looking up at him in the dimness of that house. And then in an instant, she started screaming, Mama, God's here! Mama, God's here! Mama, God's here! And as the door came open, he could see on her knees a little Mexican woman with 10 little children around her. And as they came, holding on to her dress tail, she said, Mister, you'll have to forgive my children. But before you came, we were just on our knees praying. We didn't have anything to eat. The children are hungry. And we were praying for God to send us some food. And when that girl saw you, she thought you were God coming to bring us something to eat. He said, ma'am, would you and these children help me get these groceries in here? When he had unloaded them, he said, now you stay right here, but you feed yourself and these children. I'll be back in a little while, and I'm going to take you and buy you clothes, and I'm going to give you a job in my company, and I'm going to help you get a decent house for these babies, and I'm going to help take care of you. But you just stay here. I've got an errand to run first. Drove back downtown, walked into that pastor's office and said, whatever you do, don't you dare take my name off this church roll. I'm happier than I've ever been before. Just give me some more names of people who are in need. Second mile. I wonder if there's some husband or wife here today that'll say, preacher, you've rung my bell. My marriage is suffering for lack of a second mile. But under God today, I want to be that one who will say whatever it takes. I wonder if I'm talking to a Sunday school teacher or another church leader perhaps that you've just thought, oh God, not another meeting, not another thing to do. But you'll now say, under God, I'm willing to do whatever it needs to be done to reach a world for Jesus. I wonder if I'm talking to someone here that you're so miserable because you've never known Jesus. And you'd be wanting and willing to say, today, Lord, I'm going to give you my heart and life so I can learn the joy of serving Christ. Could it be you, or you, or you? Could it be? Let's bow our heads.